This is Better Under Pressure with me, Sara Milne, the podcast where successful people share what they do to thrive under pressure.
If there's one thing that you can do that will control your rage, that will improve your performance, that will not just improve your performance, sustain your performance. I'm not so much interested in peak performance. I want consistent high performance. That's what I'm looking for. Over 20 years, you dominated the field. How do you do that? Okay. Sleep was the key.
If you've listened to Better Under Pressure before, you'll know that I'm the biggest advocate of the importance of sleep in improving performance. So the opportunity to share more high performance practices and insights and to delve deep with the elite athlete's secret weapon, Dr. Ara Suppiah, was one that I had to snap up. Having started as a standout tennis player in his native Malaysia, then training as a surgeon, and now establishing himself as a world-renowned physician and performance strategist, Ara's built a career at the intersection of sport, science, and systems thinking. Early in his medical career, Ara developed a dynamic, data-informed model of care that addressed not just injury, but also recovery, resilience, and readiness. Now, as among other things the Chief Medical Officer for LIV Golf, he's crafting world-class systems for the game's elite. He's helped 7 world number ones, multiple Ryder Cup teams and Olympians onto the podium. Part scientist, part coach, and always a student, Ara bridges old school grit with next-gen science. But his mission extends far beyond trophies. It is to empower 1 million athletes through the fusion of authentic intelligence and artificial intelligence. I'm excited for this conversation. Welcome, Ara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted to have you. Do you know, I've wanted to have a physician, an ER specialist, like everything you do. When I met you, I just thought, right, you have got to come onto this podcast, because who better to talk about pressure than someone with that background?
Fair enough. Yeah. I know pressure. I was at work today, so I know pressure. Yes.
I bet you do. So should we start with that then? Because this is really going to be a conversation all about pressure.
Yeah.
And so let's start with, when did you first experience pressure? Or at least give it that label, Ara.
When you say that, do you mean like in the youngest memories that I have had, or like in my job?
Well, let's start with the first time you decided, oh God, that's pressure.
Okay. So 2 things. I remember when I was 7 years old, and Danny was in my class, and he was the top student in my class. And my mom, who's a teacher, like always wanted me to be top of my class, right? And I kept getting second or third in my class. And this exam was coming up, and it's like, it's cumulative scores, you know, all the different subjects, and you add it up and then you get a final score. And we were neck to neck. And we had like one more subject score to come out, and I felt the pressure. I remember thinking, oh my God, like I really want to beat this guy. And like, there's nothing I can do right now. I just have to like really nail down and get this exam, like do the best I can, because that's all I can do. As it turned out, I didn't do it.
Oh, really?
He still beat me. And that feeling though was kind of interesting, because I was also very good in sports. And soon after, I would realize like there were pivotal points, like when we were playing sports, you know, like we would play football, and we'll be leading 1-0, and there's like 5 minutes left, and we're being attacked, bombarded, and you feel the pressure, like, oh my God, we just have to hang on for a few more minutes. And then you try everything you can, delay tactics, do whatever you can, just get the ball out there. And that was all the kind of pressure I would feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get over and done with, there was an elation and a deflation. And I really liked it. Like from a very young age, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I love this feeling. Yeah.
Ah, wow. So it's always been a positive relationship for you, that feeling of...
Yes. In positive, in the sense that I like the feeling, okay, but during the moment, it may not be fun. You know,
Okay.
there are times when I will tell you, for example, when I was applying for a very, very big job in the UK as a doctor. It was, one interview. There were four of us, and you feel the pressure. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you get the result, you've done the interview, you sit, and now you got to wait for them to call you back to tell you whether you got the job or not. And when you're waiting there, it's not a nice feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a nice feeling, because at that point you can't do anything.
Mm.
And what I find is, when there's something I can do with, in terms of handling the pressure, it's much more palatable. But when you have to sit and wait, and you really have no control over, or you can't do anything, and your mind starts going all over the place, that's when it's not fun. So
Yes.
yeah.
And presumably that's what you spend a lot of your life now
Yes.
doing, is
Yeah.
helping others manage that moment where the mind takes over. Can you just unpick that a little bit, Ara, as to how did you start? Let's start with you first. How did
Yeah.
you learn to manage that feeling of pressure? Because presumably you're saying you couldn't control anything,
Yeah.
but I suppose you could control you, or you learned to
Yes.
control you.
Yes. Correct.
So what did you learn to do then in those moments where actually it felt like there was nothing you could do?
Yeah. So many times, I realized very early on. So I played tennis at a very high level in Malaysia. And this is in Malaysia. We didn't have access to like a lot of live TV and stuff. So I would just, whatever I could watch, I would watch. Wimbledon finals was always on. And I remember vividly, and this is when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
Boris Becker was winning Wimbledon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I was glued, I was watching it. And I remember the commentator, I think it was Dan Maskell,
Yes.
the late Dan Maskell. And he said, you know, the great ones hit through the pressure. It's not that they don't feel the pressure, but they hit through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what does it mean by that? Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? You know? And so I asked my tennis coach, and we came to the conclusion that when you look at the situation in its enormity, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
I have this point. If I win this point, I win Wimbledon. It's going to change my life, and blah 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 blah. That point becomes humongous, right? But if you break it down and you just say, all right, I got to get this serve back. And what do I do when I train? I get it back down the middle. So that's the only thing I need to worry about right now. And then you break it down to one tangible piece, just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that skill, because of it helped me win, I developed that skill very early on. And so even in the ER, for instance, like when you are in the emergency room, and majority of the time, people think the ER is all gunshots and trauma. It's not. Majority of the times, it's very, very calm. It's like not acute stuff. And then all of a sudden, the phone will go.
Right.
And they'll say, we are 4 minutes out, and we have a child who's drowned. We have no heartbeat. Child's not breathing. We are 4 minutes out. Even talking to you right now, like the enormity of that event is very, very scary.
Mm-hmm.
But if you break it down, the only thing you need to do at that point when the child comes in is secure the airway. So if I reduce it down to that, and I go, I don't want to think about anything else, because if I don't do that, nothing else matters anyway.
Yeah.
And so you get very good at bringing it down. And there's a very famous American coach called Coach Lou.
Mm-hmm.
And he coached Notre Dame and all this. And I had the privilege of having dinner with him one time. And he narrowed it down to even a very simple line, which I used to tell my athletes or even tell a lot of my trainees. It's WIN, win, stands for what's important now. right? So if you like going back to that scenario in tennis, if I think,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is the match point at Wimbledon. If I win, this is my, is I'm going to win Wimbledon. Oh my God, like blah, blah. It's too much. But if I say what's important now, it's I got to get the serve, if I'm returning, back down the middle. So now I literally then narrow it down to that. When it comes to the child who was drowning, like we're drowned with, who's, more than likely is not going to make it. But what's important now? I have to secure the airway. Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
And so when you break it down to bits by bits by bits, then you can, as they say, how do you eat an elephant?
I love that simplicity. I mean, it's okay, it sounds simple. It's so not when you're trying to manage it. But the idea of what's important now, to me, as you say that sounds so much more energizing and motivating than focus, Sarah. Focus. Because there's a lot of talk about focus, and not getting distracted, and there's so many inputs, and how do you actually not get cluttered in your head?
Yeah.
And, focus doesn't do it for me in the same way as what you've just said. What's important now?
Yeah.
It feels like it's more like a cut through to something. Actually, what it cuts through for me, Ara, is it cuts through to purpose. Something really fundamentally, it's attached to a purpose and a value rather than a concept. And that feels much more motivating.
You nailed it. Because when people say, focus, your brain has no direction. Like, what does that even mean? What am I focusing on?
Yeah.
Am I focusing on my emotions? Am I focusing on the team? Am I focusing on the court? Like, what? It's too broad still.
Yes.
Well, what's important now forces your brain to come up with an answer. And you have to trust that in all the training that you've done in your profession, in your hobby, in whatever it is that you're doing, if you've done it long enough, your brain will pick the right thing to do. So what's important now, your brain is going to say, you know what, Ara, you've done this for 30 years. And what's important now is secure the airway. Actually, what's important now is to make sure that the tubing is connected to the oxygen, because there was a time when you forgot to check that, and then there was a bad outcome.
So it's sort of in the muscle memory.
It forces you to answer that question. Yeah. Whereas focus is an instruction that's too nebulous.
Yeah. And you said something really I really relate to and think is very interesting, is something that you've repeated over and over again outside of pressure. So, in my world of performing arts, when pressure hits, it's almost impossible to learn something new, because the nervous system is so on high alert. But if you've practiced it, we've got a phrase in our business: practice for pressure has to be practiced outside of pressure for it to be useful in pressure.
Yeah.
And that is an important part, right? Because how on earth do you know that it's the airway if you haven't drilled it and drilled it and drilled it in your training, that's where you go to? And I think I told you when we met how that really landed on me when a pupil was very disruptive in my class, where I could feel the whole of my body about to implode. But what rescued me in that moment was the breathing technique that I'd learned for violin exams, right? And that was the first insight I got around, oh, wow, the body remembers. Even if your head can't remember, your body remembers to do something. And so I am interested in this. You're talking very much around your head thinking. But I'm curious as to what the body, you work with the body all the time.
Yeah.
What for you is important around the relationship between your mind and your body in pressure?
It's a great question. That is such a great question. And again, it comes down to training, right? So for instance, when you come, what typically happens to a violinist or a performing artist, right? Mm-hmm. When you're under pressure, and even if you say, okay, like if I'm returning a serve and I'm saying what's important now? So I got to get the ball back. one of the things you realize is the times when you've practiced and you've missed it, or when you've played other tournaments and you've missed it, was in that moment, you grip the racket a little too hard. And so the ball doesn't bounce back. In that moment, when you are playing the violin, the little finger may just be a little too stiff. So you come to realize, okay, you know what? Part of that response is also controlling certain motor patterns, certain patterns to allow flow to happen. So you have to just realize what works for you. And there is a very strong connection, because the mind can say what's important now, but the body has to execute it. And in order to execute it, the best people often know how to handle the tension. You can't not have any tension. If you have no tension, you will not perform either. But if you have too much tension, it interferes. So the practice, the greats, the ones who've done it years and years and years, know themselves enough to know, like, it's almost like you know, when you dance or when you're playing the violin, it's not a conscious thing. You know, like, you know, when I'm playing this piece and I always get stuck at this point, and now I'm performing, and I know at this point I need to move like this particular way. That comes from the brain saying what's important now, and then the body responds accordingly. So there is a very strong connection. Breathing is so profound because there are, you know, I love this line. It was actually Deepak Chopra who shared this with me. And he said, if you think about breathing at its core, the most basic thing, it's the inspiration that brings you into the world, and the expiration that takes you away, right? It's such a core level. It's just inspiration and expiration, and there's a pause, okay? It can be voluntary. It could be completely subconscious and involuntary. But that breathing is one way to control the entire nervous system. Breathing can alter the speed at which you're processing information. It can make it faster, slower. It can actually, like, players will tell you when they are breathing correctly, they can slow things down. It's the first time I heard this, I thought it was the craziest things. A player who was playing baseball said, the ball is coming so fast. And I said, how do you hit it? Like, I can't even see it, dude. And he goes, you just slow it down. And I go,
how interesting.
Slow what down? And he goes, slow the ball down. And I go, what do you mean slow the ball down? It's coming from like the machine at a certain speed. And he goes, yeah, you just use your eyes and your nervous system and your breathing, and everything slows down and you have more time. And I'm like, what? That's when I really started looking at breath work. So breath work is one of those key things. What you automatically, like, you know, imagine the drowning child that's coming in, your immediate reaction. And this is where you'll see a junior trainee, they may be in control, but they're like,
yes,
they're a little bit faster, right? But if you force yourself and you go, you know what? I'm only going to take 3 breaths in a minute. So I'm going to take 1 breath in. I'm going to hold it for a count of 10. I'm going to breathe out for a count of 10. And then I'm going to do that. That means you only take 3 breaths in 1 minute. When normally an average person would take anything between 10 to 12 breaths a minute, right? By going down that low, you calm the brain down so much that you get very, very calm and very clear. And the nervous system is now under your control. So that's why when you talk about breath work, it's one of the oldest sciences out there. So yeah.
I love it. And I love it that it can do so many things, because everyone says breathe. I can remember, I'm going back to my teaching career again, but like we had some very, very angry children to deal with anger management was where you got sent if you couldn't control your temper. And they would say, this was in the day when actually they didn't really teach the kids to breathe. It was just breathe.
Yeah.
But actually what you've just, I found my breath getting slower as you were talking about it, because it is so fundamental. And yet in moments of pressure, the whole of your system unconsciously, if you don't interrupt it, wants to go faster,
Yes.
wants to breathe faster, wants to tighten up, wants to contract.
Yeah.
So it is really such a strong discipline, isn't it, to recognize how your body responds, or when pressure's coming in, how you apply it. So do you have an opinion, Ara, around all the different types of breathing? You know, there's box breathing, there's this type of breathing, there's that breathing. I mean, all I know is that the breath was an absolute wonderful anesthetic to my birth, you know, giving birth. Like managing my breath, giving birth was the most fantastic thing for me.
Wow.
In order to really feel like I was in control or managing the pain, as opposed to the pain managing me. I mean, I think, I mean, that's my sort of worst example, or best example, however you want to discuss it.
That's a profound example, because someone like me will never have the privilege of knowing that, ever. Right? Like only a mom can do that. And a mom who's experienced that, like that's an amazing experience. Unbelievable experience. You know, I want to say something. So most of the time when people say, and this happened to me too, like I, growing up, had a terrible temper. And my mom would say, breathe.
Yes.
Right? And so you'll go,
yes.
No, if you want to calm the system down, it should say, breathe out. So breathing in, if you like to, breathing in is a driver. It's going to amplify things. So if I want to feel more energetic for instance, breathing super fast, so-called the fire breathing, right? 30, 40 breaths per minute will make you feel really energized. But if you breathe out, that's the what we call the parasympathetic, the rest and digest, the calming situation. So when you want to calm yourself down, it's not like breathe, it's breathe out.
Yeah.
Breathe out. So they've taken something so simple as a breath, right? It is inspiration, expiration, and a pause in between. Okay? Now you can manipulate that in so many ways. So box breathing is taking a breath in 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4, and you do that, right? There's triangle breaths, where you breathe in for 5, you hold for 5, you breathe out for 5. Now, you can experiment and say, you know what? I'm going to breathe in for 5, hold for 5, breathe out for 7. And so there's different ways of playing with the breath. And we live in a world now where, I use the word mass hypnosis. It's like a one size fits all. So everybody does breath breathing. Everybody does 5 in, 5 out. No, play with it. Just be a child. Just experiment and say, you know what? I'm going to breathe in for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 3, and see what happens.
Yes.
There are different things, but I would say just even the pause.
Yes.
Even the pause between the two, inspiration, expiration, is very powerful.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you're manipulating only 3 things: the breath in, the pause, and the breath out.
Yes. And that beautiful pause at the end of an exhalation as well. That's sort of when you feel you've got, before your body wants to take an inhalation. I love that. Like, it feels like you sort of momentarily died. I love it. I love that feeling, that moment. It's very peaceful.
Yeah. It's I use the word eternity. Feels like it's a split second, but at that point, everything pauses, the weight of the world is gone, everything is gone for a split second. There is nothing. It's complete peace.
Yeah.
And you're grounded. And then it starts again.
What I love about what Dr. Ara just shared is how he reframes breath as the remote control for your entire nervous system, as a vital part of performance. And that story about the baseball player who said, well, you just slow the ball down. I mean, what a wild comment, and yet such a powerful reminder of what's possible when we train our breath. The idea that we can slow our view of what's facing us through the way we use our breath. Because under pressure, everything speeds up. Our mind races, our body tightens, our focus narrows, and suddenly we're no longer leading or choosing, we're reacting. Breath is a powerful free resource that sits within us and returns us to a place of calm. The beauty of what Dr. Ara said is that breathing is both voluntary and involuntary. It's happening automatically every moment. We don't have to think about it, but at any point, we can choose to take control of it. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's the bridge between what's unconscious and what's conscious, between what's happening to us and what we choose to do. I was struck by his point about the partnership between our eyes and our breath, how our nervous system reads both, and how we can use our eyes and breath to slow us down. I'm going to play with this myself. Use my eyes to increase a sense of calm as well as my exhale. Oh, and that pause at the end of the exhale that we discussed, the one that he called eternity. I know that our ability to hold our breath at the end of an exhale is a key part of training our breath. But I love that moment, just that tiny instant when the world stops, everything stills, and there's complete peace. How often do we linger there? How often do we give ourselves that microsecond before our life rushes back in? So I'm emphasising Ara's invitation to experiment. Notice your breath. Get curious about it in various situations. Deliberately slow it down. Experiment with it and find out what works for you. Play with the exhale, and when you get to that beautiful pause at the end, stay there a little longer than usual. Let that space expand, because that's where our calm returns. Clarity comes back, and our leadership, the energy of it at least, begins again.
I'm so intrigued at that example you shared around I slow the ball down. And I'm wondering, like, you know, a lot of my work is with leaders who are feeling under pressure, you know, and I'm wondering what the equivalent is of the slowing the ball down for them, you know, when the pressure hits and there's so much in. I'm curious about that.
A technique that a lot of players will use is called the soft gaze. So you can actually train this. What you do is, so imagine if you were to run uphill for a bit, okay? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you ran on the flat. It feels so much easier.
Yes.
Right? So the soft gaze is like that. Just before they want to, like, you know, a big serve is coming or whatever, they soften the gaze so everything goes blurry. They kind of see the whole periphery, and they can actually see the peripheral vision. They expand it to out here, but everything is kind of blurry. Okay?
Yep.
Then when they come out of it and they focus, it's super sharp.
Oh, wow.
So that's a technique that they use.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because you talk about laser focus on what is important in this moment.
Yeah.
It feels odd that you would go out in order to come in.
Come back in, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from a physical, again, like you talk, okay, the brain goes, what's important now? Well, what's important? I need to return the serve. Okay. So you said it beautifully. Okay. It's simple. The concept is simple. Get the ball back in, down the middle, deep. But it's not easy.
No.
Because to execute that process physically takes a skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you need some things in your armory, right? So for once, you'll be like, you know what? Soften the grip. Or just look at the strings. And when you're looking at the strings, soften your gaze. Like you're almost seeing, not even, you're looking at the strings, but you're not seeing the strings. Then you come up. Take a breath in, breathe out, and step in. So that's, you know, whether you see platform divers, I work with ballerinas who are like brilliant at this. Absolutely. I mean, ballerinas to me take it to a different level. Pound for pound, the strongest athletes I've worked with. And mentally extremely tough, because many of them are performing injured, in pain. And you can't tell, because in that moment, they are able to just focus on what needs to be done right now.
Yes.
And everything else is, you know, first time I'd work with a ballerina, I had to like take her big toenail out.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And they're like, just take the nail out. And I was like, and they're like, do you know how to take the nail out? I was like, yes, I do know how to take the nail out. And they go, well, take the nail out. And I was thinking, okay, well, how is she going to dance? Well, I took the nail out, wrapped it up. And Sara, you couldn't tell.
Mm.
And then I asked her later, it's like, did that not hurt? She goes, yeah, it did hurt. And I was like, and she goes, and what? Like, I was in a performance in that moment.
Well, I mean, that's the devotion of performance, isn't it?
Yes, completely. So no matter what you are, even when you work with people, executives with high functioning jobs who need to deal with immense pressure, I think it comes down, the same thing. Like, what's absolutely important right now? Answer that question, and then physically embody whatever needs to happen. And that's a skill. You have to acquire that skill, because I personally don't think that's one cookie cutter method. Even breathing, even box breathing, like there are different types. Figure out what works for you and trial it, test it under fire, and then you'll come up with your answer.
Yes, gosh, so many questions. I really like this idea of, and it's interesting when you work with a leader sometimes who's possibly very sporty, or they perform in some other area of their life. What's interesting is that sometimes they don't transfer the skill that they use over here into the workplace. Because some reason it's compartmentalized in their mind that they would do that when they're playing sport, or they would do that when they're performing, or when they're singing, or something else. But when you can combine that and see it as, okay, well, I manage my breath over here. Supposing I manage my breath in relation to this person here, or to this meeting here, or to this really important deal over here. And how can you use all of that muscle memory in an environment that feels different from where you've been used to working it?
Yes. And so, when I work with athletes, I work with athletes from multiple genres, right? From baseball to tennis to, and then I also work in the ER. I do public speaking. So I do a variety of things. And what I've learned is the science is the science, Sara. Management of stress, the science of managing that is the science, right? How you apply it may change a little bit, but the broad science is applicable to any stressful situation.
Yes.
So whether it be a teacher dealing with a child who is driving you nuts, or you have to go and close the deal, otherwise your business is going to die if you don't get this fund, or you are in the ER and you have chest pain and you have no idea what's going on, and it's not you, it's your husband or your wife, and you have to manage that situation. The science is the same, because the human body, for all its unpredictability and the beauty that it has certain things that we've discovered to be predictable. The stress response, this is Hans Selye's work, and a lot of my work on inflammation and stuff is based on this. Hans Selye showed that if you stress an organism, it responds in a very predictable manner. When we talk about how you release cortisol, how you release adrenaline, how do you break it down and come back to a steady state, it's extremely predictable. And so if it's predictable, it's trainable.
Yes.
And if it's trainable in one area, it's then transferable into another area. You just have to get creative.
Yes. It's an explorer mindset on yourself, isn't it?
Yes, completely. So every time you do, like a lot of the executives who like, they love, like so many of them love playing paddle. Like paddle is like so big into them, right? And when they play paddle, they are creative, there's banter, they are like kids, and they're like, take that. There's a lot of beauty in that, and take that to a board meeting.
Yeah.
And talk about what you do there. Or sometimes in the board meeting, when you're really good at that and you're not good at padel, is because in padel your mind is everywhere, where the board meeting you're very, very, okay, you know what is the outcome I need to get out of this meeting? Well, bring that to padel. And when you're returning serve, go, what is the outcome I need to get from here?
Yeah.
How do I win this point at any cost?
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes. I want to go back to something you said right at the very beginning about your mum saying that you had you had a bit of a temper. You could flare up, right?
Yeah,
so how have you applied this? How do you now manage your temper?
Gosh, I still struggle. Let me tell you, the temper is still there. It's not as ferocious as it was, and it's not as frequent. And a lot of that temper has come about partly because I knew my triggers as I've got older. Like, Sara, I don't know any other shortcut to this. It's just getting older. So for instance, it's like I said, we are very predictable, right? So I know certain situations are really going to annoy me and they're going to upset me. And at that point, I know I'm going to get angry. What I've also come to realize is I used to get an outcome by being angry, right? So if I led a team in a very difficult ER situation, they were fearful that if I got pissed off or I got angry, it's not going to be good, right? They will react in a certain way. But I've come to realize that anger is such a unsophisticated way to deal with anything. There is a place for it, but you can get more done, more gracefully, more regularly by not being angry. So when I feel the anger coming out, in the moments between the breaths, the pause. So the anger's coming up, I pause and I go, okay, if I lose my mind right now and get angry with everybody, it's not going to be pretty. How do I make this more beautiful? And that one split second changes again. Like, instead of going, what's important now? I go, how do I make this more beautiful? Because being angry is very ugly. It serves a purpose. Like, I think there is an absolute need for rage. There is a time for rage. And sometimes you can try, telling people nicely, and then all of a sudden go, hey, and everyone stops and you go, get it done.
Yeah.
And it gets done, right? Like, so there is a time for that. But when when you're always like that, people tune out and it's not graceful. Yeah. So the answer to the question is I still battle with it, but most of the time I'm that pause in my breath, just enough to catch the question and say, how do you make this more beautiful? How do you make this more elegant?
Yes. Beauty and elegance. Let's have more of that, definitely. And our interpretation of what you've just described is body, breath buys you choice. Body, breath buys you choice.
Beautifully said. Yeah.
But it's so hard. And I think it becomes also very challenging. I mean, I'm curious about sport because a lot of the competition and a lot of the rage, as you might say, or the energy or the desire to win can turn into, that it happens all the time in teams, doesn't it? People lose their temper.
Yeah.
How do you train top athletes to control their temper?
Okay. Great question. Great question. So there's a difference between being aggressive and having a temper. Being aggressive means you are still very much in control. A temper is rage where you're out of control. So one of the best examples of this story is Roger Federer. One of the most elegant athletes to ever walk on this planet, and still is such a beautiful mover, artist, right? In his teens, had horrific rage. Broke his rackets. Yeah, well documented. Broke his rackets. Not like dad would not be happy with him, mom wouldn't be happy with him, like battle with rage a lot of time, right? Now he got away from rage to channel that energy because he didn't know, like, I think it was, how do you, like, rage comes about because you're reacting to a situation, right? It's a reaction. It may have accumulated, but now you just snapped and it's a reaction. And if you can take that rage and turn it to aggression, which is much more control, and like you hit a shot instead of going, oh my God, and you slam your rackets, you miss a shot. Like what Nadal would do is like, okay, that shot's gone. I'm never going to do that again. But I'm going to do this instead, right? So rage is, to me, when an athlete is completely out of control, I have to sit down and ask them, like, what is it about this situation? Like, what happened there? And many times it's nothing to do with the point or what happened there. It's something external. They are like, I've hit this shot a million times in practice. Like, I don't know why I can't do this here right now. Why did I miss that shot? Like, that's what got them really bothered. And so I say, you know what? Like, that's a great question because it matters. It means you want to get better. It's like really, really good. But the mechanism is harmful because you're going to learn by losing a whole match. And you've lost complete control over it. So how can you readdress that? Again, like the question, like instead of saying focus, what's important now, you go back to that and say, okay, you know what? Like that question, why did I miss this shot? Like, why am I keep making this? It's not going to serve you.
No.
But it's a trigger for the rage. I've had a golfer break every club.
Wow.
Snapped every club over his knee in competition. And I was like, okay. Later on, I said, what happened? And he goes, I didn't want to be there. I was like, why did you not want to be there? He was dealing with something else. And he couldn't focus on the golf. And so that was rage. You know, in that situation, I was like, okay, you know what? Break the clubs. It's okay, because it's not that. It's not going to hurt his game at that point. But when you look at like certain athletes, like Nick Kyrgios, for instance, phenomenal talent, but has got better by controlling, channeling, turning rage into aggression. You know, well, if you take someone like a Rafa Nadal, for instance, that boy was told from a very young age, respect your rackets, don't throw them, or you won't get another one. And when you're angry, move your legs more, hit the ball harder, take it out on the ball. And so it's still rage, but converted into aggression. I think that's what happened to Federer. Federer, as he got older, became this prolific winner, and he was very aggressive in his style of playing because he took a lot of the rage and converted that to something very positive.
Yeah. I'm suddenly seeing this whole idea of it being a big ball of energy. Like it is energy, and if you can direct it into an intention that actually makes something better, then use the energy.
Yes. Don't deny the energy. Like the energy is very, very good. I've never seen a great athlete without that kind of edge between rage and aggression. Never seen it. When you think of the greatest athletes of all time, whether it's Ali, whether it's Kipchoge running the marathon, you know, there is a little bit of, I'm going to show the world. I'm going to own this. No one is going to beat me. That is kind of rage, just modified into something very purposeful, very useful.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think we're talking that pressure, which is sort of why I love this subject, is like, how do you turn pressure into an energy that actually allows you to be better?
Yeah. Again, I think the biggest, like, the one lesson I would keep coming back to it is like, don't look at it as a big thing. Like if you take it all in at one big thing, it will consume you.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
what's important now? You have to
Yes.
chunk it down.
Yes.
You have to cut it down into tiny pieces.
Yeah.
Even in a conversation, you go like, I can either win this conversation or we can be happy, right? Like, what's important right now? Sometimes the answer is I have to win this conversation. But sometimes it's like, no, our happiness is more important than who wins this conversation.
Yeah.
That is a simple question. Like, what's important now?
Important now. Yeah. I was reading something actually in preparation for this, and you were talking very much around the value and importance of sleep, which of course with SHED, sleep, hydration, exercise, diet, for me, a lot of the work that we do is how do you help leaders fuel themselves so they have enough fuel in their body. I think you said it was the sort of the magic ingredient of any high performance was sleep. And then you talked about recovery and how the greatest see recovery as an absolutely vital ingredient of performance. Can you say a little bit more about why sleep, and out of all of them, I mean, because you're a nutritionist, you look at the whole body, you look at the whole person, don't you, when you are helping somebody. So why hone in so much on sleep, Ara?
So Usain Bolt first said this many years ago. Usain Bolt said something, right? And he said, 50% of my training is rest and recovery because I need to allow my body to absorb the training that I'm doing. Most of us, when we heard this, like, focus on the first half. 50% of my training is rest and recovery. But I couldn't get away from this question. Like, what did he mean about the body absorbing training? No one has ever mentioned that. And so then I questioned, I was like, why would one body absorb training and another body not absorb training? And that became my dissertation in life, right? I was like, how do I maximize, if I was working with Sara, how do I maximize her body's ability to absorb training? And
tell me, Ara, tell me.
So there are many ways, right? Like, so that's where, this broad term about resilience and recovery and all of this comes in. But when you narrow it down to like, okay, you know what? If there's one thing that you can do that will control your rage, that will improve your performance, that will not just improve your performance, sustain your performance. Like, I'm not so much interested in peak performance. I want consistent high performance. That's what I'm looking for, right? Over 20 years, you dominated the field. How do you do that? Okay. Sleep was the key. Because when you're able to anchor sleep, and I'll come back to like how long people need to sleep for, and I'll come to that in a minute, okay? But it is a biological process that when you do that, and you do it in the right manner for the right length of time, your body forgives you for all the harshness that you've put it through for the day and allows you to start afresh. We now know part of the science is the brain cleans itself out.
Yes.
Right? The lymphatics cleans itself out at certain key times. Then there's data from 2002, so 23 years ago. The World Health Organization put it out there that sleep deprivation was as much as a risk factor for cancer as was smoking. And so I was like, why would that be? Well, part of the immune system, certain parts, the immune system is not just one thing, there's different components to it. There are parts of the immune system that work strategically when you are in deep sleep. So the more I studied sleep, I was like, you know what? If there's one thing I can tell you to do that will impact everything else, from your reaction time to your endurance, to your speed, to your agility, to your power, to your strength, to your ability to like engage in the moment, it was sleep. And then I find out through blood work that it's the best anti-inflammatory I could prescribe. And I can prescribe drugs, okay? I can prescribe powerful drugs. Sleep is the best anti-inflammatory we have. So if you look at a child, why is it a child like can be burnt and then come back 4 days later for a wound check and you're like, where were they burnt?
Gosh.
And the mom's like, it's right here. And I'm like, oh, I can barely see it. So sleep to me is very, very powerful. Okay. So that's why when, it's again, like you can't just say, A is the most powerful alphabet in the whole language. Now you need all of them. You need all the vowels. You need all 26. But if you want to hone it down, then the 5 vowels are like super important. They carry more weight than everything else. So sleep is one of those things. Nutrition is the other thing. Okay. And when you combine both of those, the human body has a lot of what it needs to get stuff done. Coming back to the question of how long you need to sleep, this is where I found this so interesting. So Michael Jordan could get 3-4 hours of sleep and you couldn't touch him the next day. He would embarrass you. Usain Bolt and Roger Federer, 10 hours plus naps. So it's highly variable.
Yeah.
Okay. It comes down to your sleep cycles. So when you hear about people and they say, you need about, people say this, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Where did that number come from? It comes from something called sleep cycles, because you go in a cycle of different stages of sleep. In some people, that sleep cycle lasts for 90 minutes. In others, they can get a sleep cycle done in 40 minutes. Now, what we know is you need about 5 sleep cycles. So if you get 5 sleep cycles and you get that in 4 hours, you're pretty good.
Gosh.
And it's like great athletes, Tiger Woods, notorious, like doesn't sleep very much. I've got another guy like Brooks Koepka, 5 times major winner, doesn't sleep a lot. And then I've got other athletes like Xander who will sleep for days. Like just, And so regardless, you still have to get that in. That's why sleep is so, so, so powerful. And it's free.
Yes, as is breath.
As is breath. Yeah.
Ara's passion is supporting elite athletes, and mine is supporting leaders. But so much of what we've talked about so far is transferable and useful if we're prepared to apply it, experiment with it, and most importantly, practice it. But what I've learned through the work we do and what's reiterated in this conversation with Dr. Ara is that regardless of the situation, there are 3 key things which we can always choose to control if it matters enough. And they are 1, our breathing, which I've talked about already, 2, our routines, and 3, our perspective. So I want to pause for a minute and capture a few of the routines and perspectives Ara's raised in this conversation so far that will definitely remain with me, and hopefully with you too, and consider how we might apply them to our daily lives. WIN. What's important now? Well, I can already see a post-it with this on my screen. Actually, simply seeing win as a word in front of me every day sounds energizing. It will be a daily reminder before diving into anything for me to ask myself, what's important now? To chunk it down into one tangible piece that requires, or actually I might even say deserves, my energy and attention. It's a way of reducing the enormity of something into the vital action to keep moving towards the bigger goal that might feel overwhelming if I only allow myself to focus on that. Secondly, the concept of converting energy that you might be feeling into something much more potent. Dr. Ara talks about turning rage into aggression in sport. He used the examples of put the rage in your legs or hit through the pressure. I like the word convert as it places the responsibility firmly back on us. asking us to use the energy in a productive way. So if we apply this principle to life versus sport, a question I might ask myself or a client is, what's the desire under the anger or the fury or frustration? I might ask, what is the desire you're ignoring? We can all learn how to alchemize the energy of pressure into a positive desire. And finally, sleep, the magic ingredient to high performance. I've always known that sleep is the main shed ingredient that gets the best out of me. But I do love this provocation from Usain Bolt, and now of course from Ara, which is, how can we maximize our body's ability to absorb training? To remember that our brain needs cleansing after a full day and needs sleep to calibrate and embed the day's lessons and insights. I remember reading Nick Littlehale's book called Sleep about a decade ago, where he does talk about the importance of sleep cycles versus hours. But I didn't know about the variability of our individual sleep cycles. I've always been intrigued as to why some people work really well on less sleep. Maybe this is why. But remembering that sleep is the best anti-inflammatory we have, and it costs nothing, is the goal that I'm taking from this. Both breath and sleep are free resources and massive influences on how we manage pressure for maximum benefit. It's worth us paying deliberate attention to them. Now, let's get back to Dr. Ara.
Do you think there's a difference between the female body and the male body? So a lot of the examples you've shared have been men. Mm-hmm. Do you work with female athletes? Mm-hmm. Okay. And is there any significant data that you think is important in terms of their ability to sustain pressure?
Oh, huge.
Or live and perform in pressure?
Oh, so women are like, I was working with a lot of guys, and then I had a female golfer, very famous female golfer, said, I want to work with you. This is 10 years ago. And I was like, I haven't really worked with a female athlete, And she goes, oh, how convenient for you. I was like, oh my God. So I started working with them. I have a whole bunch of female athletes. I have so much love and respect for them. It is so much easier being a guy from a performance and predictability in terms of training.
Yeah, predictability.
So much easier, right?
Yeah.
The women have to go through cycles, and then the cycles change as they age. Mm-hmm. So it's a constant fluctuation. Mm-hmm. And for a very simple example, I will tell you, if you break down a lady's cycle into two halves, okay? The first half, she's strong, she's building, so she can do certain types of things. She's also mentally much stronger because there's a surge in testosterone, even in women in the cycle, okay? And so we know testosterone has an effect on the frontal executive function of the brain, okay? In the second half, when the tissue is starting to break down before you have a menstrual cycle, you're breaking down, there's not enough testosterone, they're much prone to have sleep disturbances and a lot less will, lot less drive. And it changes girl to girl, changes female to female. But for a female, the second half is competitively harder than the first half.
Interesting.
And in the middle, as part of the cycle is the premenstrual phase. Now, when you look at the premenstrual phase, you have increase in body temperature, you have water retention, you have pain, you don't feel like doing very much. Those are cardinal signs of acute inflammation. So you're also dealing at a time when your body is slightly more inflamed. So you have to adjust the training. You have to adjust how you eat. You have to adjust how you handle all of those things. So pain, for instance, has a significant effect on the brain, has a significant effect on sleep. So when it comes to our female athletes, it's a completely different conversation. Now we have to say, you know what? I want you to maximize your sleep here. I want you to adjust your sleep here. I want you to change your nutrition like this in this half of the cycle. I want you to, if you are going to go through, you know, you're competing, but it happens to be in this part of the cycle and you need more alertness, then you may need a supplement or a substance that is legally going to allow you to be more alert. So you got to think those things with the girls. It's so much easier with the guy. There's nothing to think of.
Because it's more predictable. I think that's very interesting. Yeah, the predictability is a really interesting ingredient to this, I think.
Yeah. And then what's crazy though is women are expected to perform exactly the same, regardless of where they are in the cycle. And that's why, like, you have to put them on a pedestal. A man couldn't do that. Like, you could. No. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
So difficult. Yeah. You know, it's amazing how moms and female athletes and female executives show up and still deliver at such a high level. And as a man, you have no idea how much blood she's losing or how she's feeling that day or how much pain she's having or any of that stuff. No idea.
And then there's the menopause, Ara. There's the other, you know, the other extreme. You've often got very senior women holding very senior responsibility and leadership positions, and all of that's going on for them hormonally as well.
And the menopause is particularly nasty when it comes to your sleep. A lot of women who are going through the menopause really struggle with sleep. Hot flashes, sleep, and they have to go through this phase here. And that's where I think there's a lot of ancient remedies that are often not looked at. Like, so behind you, there's a book that just focuses on ancient remedies. And there is a whole section on supporting women who are going through the change, the climactic symptoms, you know. Yeah, and so there are lots of things you can do. You just have to know that, okay, you know what? These are my options. Yes. And then you come out the other side.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Wow, so much. Who knew we were going to go so much into the specifics of this? But it's good and interesting to do this for me anyway, thinking about all of these really incremental changes or shifts that can happen to you as a whole body, as a whole, you know, living being, when you've got pressure coming in at various different levels. So thank you so much, Ara, for all of this.
Oh my God.
I ask every guest towards the end of this conversation if there were two things. So if you imagine somebody's dealing with pressure, you've said already it can hit in all sorts of different walks of life. What would be, if you had two things that you would pay forward to anyone listening to this who would like to be better under pressure, what two gems would you offer them?
All right. You put me on the spot. Okay. The absolute number one is break it down to what's important now and get very clear into what's important now. That's the first thing I would do, right? And then second thing is become aware that when you are feeling pressure, it is like labor pains. You are on this side of an absolute miracle. It is a privilege. Because I guarantee you there was a time when you would have wanted to have that, most of us would have wanted to have that pressure and didn't have it. Or we had a different pressure. So see pressure for what it is and then just thank it and say, thank you for bringing me here, knowing there's a miracle that's about to be birthed.
What a beautiful way to end this conversation, Ara. Thank you
Sara, thank you so much for having me. I can't believe you talked for this long and just time just flew.
But isn't it an interesting subject, right? You can go all over the place with it. Especially when you put two people who are desperately interested in it in various different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Better Under Pressure with me, Sara Milne Rowe. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe and let us know what you found useful or what you'd like to know more about. And don't forget, if you'd like to sign up for our fortnightly Pressure Points newsletter, where I summarise key points from each conversation, you can find a link at saramilnerowe.com. If you're interested in any of the practices mentioned, check out my book, The Shed Method. Alternatively, you can find us at Coaching Impact or me on LinkedIn and Instagram. Better Under Pressure was produced by the fab team at Smart Cookie Media. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, goodbye.